Hey guys, Brian here from Thumper Fab. Today I'm going to walk you through installing our top rack option on your Ranger XP 1000. For the first step in assembling our top rack option, we're going to go ahead and install the light bar brackets that are provided in our light bar boxes to help ease installation once it's up on the vehicle. You're going to use the hardware provided in your light bar box to fasten the brackets to your main rails through the hole next to your large rectangular slot. You'll cap it off with your nut before snugging it down for use later on. Here we have the rear rail of our top rack option. You can see the rectangular slots here. They're meant for our 6-inch slim light bars. We'll go ahead and mount the brackets to the light bars and the light bar assembly to this rear rail before we tie the whole assembly together. For the next step, we're going to mount our brackets that are provided in the light bar box using our large socket cap screws. You'll install the socket cap screws into the light bar and tighten it up with the Allen wrench that's provided in the box. With our brackets mounted to our 6-inch lights, we can go ahead and fasten them to our rear rail using the hardware provided in our box. You'll slide the fastener through the rear rail and the bracket on the light bar before capping it off with a nut and getting everything tightened up before we assemble the rack. With our fasteners started, we can go ahead and tighten them up using our 7/16 socket and 5/32 Allen wrench. With our rear lights installed, we can go ahead and move on to fastening the side rails to our rear rail. We're going to use our 1/4-inch button head screws and nylon flange lock nuts. We'll install the fasteners through the side rails and through the rear rail before capping it off with our nylon lock nut, and then move on to the front rail. We'll go ahead and tighten up our 1/4-inch hardware before moving on to the front rail. For the last step before we can mount our top rack to our roof rack, we're going to install our front rail using our 1/4-inch hardware. You'll rest it in position over the side rails before inserting our 1/4-inch hardware and capping it off with our nylon lock nut on the back side. Once you get all 4 started, you can tighten them all evenly, move on to fasten it to the roof rack. For our top rack option, if you already had your rack installed, you'll have to remove your tie downs that go from the driver to passenger side rail. You'll also have to remove your accent rails that are mounted on both the driver and passenger side. When we're mounting our top rack option, you will not be able to reuse your accent rails, but you will gain the ability to have side and rear lights with your roof rack. On this installation, we've went ahead and removed our tie downs and our accent tie down rails in preparation for mounting the top rack. The next step, we'll grab a friend and help us install the rack up on top of the roof rack before reinstalling our tie downs and all hardware. If you purchased our top rack option at the same time you purchased our main roof rack for your Ranger 1000, you can assemble all of it on the bench before you mount it to the vehicle, which will help from having to stand up top of the vehicle and make the installation process a breeze. The next step, we'll grab the help of a friend and place the rack up on top of our roof rack. With your top rack up on the vehicle, we'll have to go ahead and remove these 2 bolts shown on both the driver and passenger side, as they'll be used to fasten the top rack down to the side rail and your front brow. With our main rails in position, I've gone ahead and began installing our cross members in the same position as they typically mount on the roof rack. You'll place them on top of your new top rack side rails. To fit them into position, it'll help you have the rail diagonal and slide it, which will allow you to position it correctly. You'll want to go ahead and start your hardware before moving on. We're going to start with tightening up the center one and moving out before reinstalling our 20-inch light. With all your tie down rails in place, you can go ahead and begin tightening them all. We're going to start with the center and move out. Then we'll return and finish tightening up our front mount bolts that we had to feed in from the top down. We'll go ahead and mount our 20-inch light bar to our light bar brackets that are already mounted on our side rails. We'll slide it into position, get the bolt started, tighten them both up evenly. We'll move on to the wiring. For the wiring of our top rack option, it'll come with 3 separate harnesses for your Ranger. One will be the harness that will go from Deutsch connector to pulse bar plug, which will allow you to easily plug into the Polaris provided pulse bar. This will have your switch be powered at key on. Once you plug in there, you'll run your Deutsch connector to your main power harness. This will have your relay and will be the longest of all the harnesses, which you'll route from under the hood down to the passenger side fender well, where we've tied it along the frame rail before routing it into the tunnel that runs from the front to the back of the vehicle. When you're routing your wiring in your tunnel, you want to make sure to keep it away from the drive shaft and tie it nice and secure out of the way. With the tunnel removed, it's easy to access. You'll feed it from the front of the vehicle back towards the rear. Coming up, you'll come up through this hole provided in the rear seats. On this installation, we decided to run the wire behind the passenger side rear seats before running up the passenger C-pillar, followed by drilling a hole in the roof. Here we used a grommet and some silicone to keep everything watertight. Once we have our main power harness coming through the roof with a nice watertight fit, you'll plug in your power distribution harness into your 20-inch and your 6-inch lights on both the passenger and driver side. There will be some excess wiring, so you bundle it up and tie it using zip ties to the roof rack in a nice clean spot for a nice finished look. Here we have our switch for our roof rack top rack option. It'll be labeled as rear lights. This switch will control all 4 lights on that top rack. And here you can see the wiring. We'll go black wire to the top terminal, white to the middle, and blue to the bottom terminal. For installation of the switch, we simply popped out one of these dash covers. This will allow us to slide our Thumper Fab provided light switch into the cubby hole for a nice clean finish. With a simple flip of the switch, we'll be able to turn our lights on and off. With your wiring all tied up and secured and all your fasteners tight, you're ready to hit the trails and enjoy your new Thumper Fab top rack option.